Welcome in, Believe in Commanders podcast. Scott Jackson and Anthony Armstrong with you, part of the Believe Network. We are brought to you by FanDuel. Please comment, like, and follow us. That is always appreciated. And good to see you, Anthony. Hope you had a good weekend. And we are under 2 weeks. I mean, we're before you know it, it is going to be draft night.
Yes, indeed. 10 days away. You know, Scott, I actually checked my calendar because it hit my head randomly. I was like, I think I have a wedding that to go to. I'm like, it better not be during the first round of the draft. I'm gonna be like, guys, I got to go to the bathroom right now. Did I miss the big kiss? Oh no. It's on Saturday, so I'll be good.
Oh, good.
So I'll be day 3 stuff. We won't have to go do any breaking news type things. But no, man, it's been a good weekend. 10 days away from the draft. We're filming this on the 13th, obviously. Shout out to the 13th. We are almost to the draft, and there's one side where I'm like, man, I'm excited, but then I'm also like, man, we don't know who the hell they're gonna pick. And there's so many different options. And pre-show, you were talking about the fact that all their visits have been around players that could basically mean they have to trade back to grab these guys.
Yeah, lately it's to trade back people that are coming in the building.
Hey, you got to cover your bases. That's the way I'm looking at it. That's the way I feel. But I read Ben Standing's piece. There's a playbook to trade back, and there's some pretty good players, and you can still get some quality players there. So who knows how they're going to run this thing on? But there's a big story about one player that could fall to 7 down there from Miami, Reuben Bain Jr. You have the story over there pulled up.
Yeah, was cited for careless driving in 2024. Left a passenger in a coma, and later resulted in the death of the 22-year-old. And the careless driving charge was dismissed by a court about 2 weeks before the death, and no criminal liability had been found in connection to the crash. The situation, though, has been discussed apparently for a while in NFL circles, and the family is not looking for attention. Again, it's just the incident's out there, and now it's suddenly become public. And even though the teams know, I wonder if this just changes the calculus for some, because what do your fans think, right? How does it look for them? I mean, we think about a few years back, Jalen Carter slipped to the Eagles based off of a similar type of story. And I believe in that case, there was some civil liability and a payment made. But and this thing is it's a horrible story, obviously a tragic situation. I mean, there wasn't any alcohol or drugs or anything involved with it. And the citation was eventually dismissed. Now the story gets out, even though the family of the victim did not want the story to get out, which is kind of strange. And we always wonder what timing of these things, right? Like, why do they get dropped? Is it a team that likes Reuben Bain but doesn't think they're going to get a chance to draft him, and they want to get this out there so fan bases can react and their GMs and their coaches can hear accordingly? That's these things end up coming out. But it is certainly interesting. Here we are. We're just at 10 days out. And suddenly something that has been known for multiple years is now a story that is being released.
Yeah, it is definitely a tragedy, and my condolences to the family. It sucks, and I apologize that the news got broken out and got released when they didn't want that to happen. And You're right, Scott. This is that time of year, and frankly, it's been kind of quiet.
Yeah.
I think that nowadays kids they've seen the process in the combine. They've seen the gas masks, and they've seen all the pre-draft drama that happened. And frankly, I think a lot of guys can keep their nose clean a little bit more, but mistakes happen, unfortunately. And I think Reuben's probably better. He's grown from that. And then from all accounts, he seems to be a good dude. Like, he seems to be a good guy. Right. And he's probably very remorseful for that. And you were talking about that going to affect his draft stock. Probably, and if you feel like that's something, you could go and check it out on FanDuel and see if he's going to fall. They have the top 6 picks over there as odds, so you can kind of assume or predict what the draft could be. And he could be there at 7. I remember I said, hey, man, Reuben Bain at 7 wouldn't be a bad play for me. And if he's there, I would be at least saying, hey, Adam Peters, you might want to go ahead and pick him up, because he's going to be a good player for your team. But it's unfortunate that he had that situation in the past.
And it looks like the Chiefs really like him too, and they're at 9, so it doesn't feel like he would slide out of the top 10. But look, somebody's going to slide, right? Like somebody that we've had in these mocks, and other people have had in these mocks, is going to end up sliding? Is it, I've seen recently Carnell Tate now being taken to the teens. I've seen some scenarios where Caleb Downs maybe slips out past the top 10 as well. I mean, and again, who knows what to believe at this point with these different mock drafts, when you get up there and if you buy them, and I guess you obviously certainly need to know, who's putting them out there, who do you trust with these things. But there is a likelihood that, there's going to be somebody that the media loves that maybe the teams don't love as much, and maybe some of the teams have been talking up just to get some misinformation out there. There's a lot of that gets played this time of year. Somebody told me a long time ago, man, be careful who you believe.
Yeah.
When you're talking to some of these with some of these guys and teams, because more than likely they're giving you bad information the later you get in the process than the real information.
Yeah, that's something to consider. Like, man, did you hear about his knee? I don't know, man. It's kind of
right.
Yeah. I think about the receiver down there in Arizona State, Jordan Tyson. Like the whole season has been hamstring and these injury concerns, but then there's been some buzz that maybe the injury concerns are nothing to worry about. Some teams are going to trip on it. So, I mean, frankly, that's what the visits are for too, right? If you've done the process,
do your own doctor's work.
If you scouted it ahead of time and you like, okay, I kind of like these guys. Let's spend our 30 on these folks, right? And I love the fact that being able to run into these people down the line, after their other contract, maybe they get cut from another team and then they have to choose a place that they want to go and you get to bring them in. So it's good to do your due diligence on that. I think that it makes sense to try to grab as many things as you can. I was given the analogy today, this morning, 5 a.m. I'm talking to a group of ladies. I'm training them here. And one of them asked me.
Humble brag, by the way. Anthony's up at 5 a.m., people.
Yeah. I'm out here trying to get y'all fit. I'm trying to make sure we had the fittest fans. But look, she said, who are the Commanders going to take at 7? I says, you know what? Here's what it's like. It's like you go to the grocery store, you got $50 and you're like, man, there is a juicy steak that's right there. It's actually kind of discounted for me, but it's in my price range. But my pantry needs bread. I need some ketchup. I also need some pasta and I need some potatoes. I can get a little bit, lower grade of meat, maybe a little chicken thigh, but I can also get some of these other items. That's where they're at right now with the Commanders. Do you want to go for the big juicy steak, take the top talented player, or do you want to try to fill up that pantry and have a whole meal?
I like that. So if the big thick steak is available at 7, then the other people who are hungry behind you, right? Like there's all these other franchises starving at that point, the 25 teams behind you. And they're like, no, let me I'll eat that. I'll buy that steak from you. And then that's when, as Adam Peters and the Commanders, you got to make sure that's a high price for that thick cut of steak that you're selling off here to move back. Because I think we all can see it. Look, it's not ideal just to have, the first and no second, and again, Adam Peters said it over and over. I'm not disagreeing with him. I would trade my second this year for Laremy Tunsil all over again. I mean, no questions asked. I mean, they got him on a really good deal with the way he played in year one. They've already locked him up for multiple years down the road. Everything about Laremy Tunsil has been a plus positive from leadership to play on the field for them. So I'm not regretting that they made those trades, but I am saying you are in a situation where a little light. You still need some other positions, maybe no glaring needs outside of center. If we don't believe Nick Algretti is the guy for sure to carry it all the way through 17 games and hopefully playoffs. So, I mean, that's the good thing because they did the work in free agency not to make anything totally out of control. Like you and I were debating last week, like, what are we more concerned about, safety or is it corner? Is it corner? It's hard to say. It's hard to say because I can talk myself into, okay, their safety room's fine. I can talk myself into, okay, I think the corners are okay too. And it really comes down to the guy who's calling the plays, Durante Jones, what he thinks, that they need there and what was most valuable to this defense. But anyway, getting back to the point, that's the thing, man. Like, what is their price, right? Like, what is it they're really looking for? Are they looking for that second? Are they looking for a second this year, Anthony? Are they looking for picks going into what next year's fruitful draft? Are they thinking that far down the road? Are they willing to take another third round pick to swap with somebody in the first round in some other pick swaps maybe? What is it going to take? And what would it, I guess, for our fan base, what would it take for them to be, okay, they did the right thing, could have gotten player A that I liked, but now we've got these extra couple selections this year? I
think the way it plays out, it depends on we're kind of talking about the fact that people could drop out of the top 10. There's going to be some name that's there. I feel like there's more combinations of what the top 2 through 6 could be. Obviously, one is Fernando. The top 2 through 6 have been any combination of players. Arvell Reese's. There's a Jeremiah Love in there sometimes.
David Bailey.
David Bailey. He's projected to be number 2. So, like, there's so many different names, and I think the more intriguing the prospect, like if a Jeremiah Love is sitting there at 7, the phone will be going crazy.
I think so too.
If a Sonny Styles is there at 7, the phone will be going crazy. Even Caleb Downs, I think, is going to generate a little bit of attention as well. And David Bailey, I don't think he's going to get that far, but if he was there, like, you may have to say, don't even pick up the phone. But at some point, maybe you're like, we got a good haul, and the draft is pretty deep. There are some solid ends in the second round that you can grab if we get back into the second round. So I don't know, man. There's so many ways.
Let me ask you this, Anthony. In your mind, when you look at the Commanders team, what do you think is more needed? Like superstar talent on this roster, a guy who's literally like could be one of the best at his position, whatever that position may be, or is it more about depth and just build out the roster? It's more about the numbers versus maybe the eye-popping, kind of game-changing type of player. Because I don't, I think the roster's goodish, but I think in terms of like, who are the guys besides Tunsil? Terry, we think Kylie of, we think he's, one of the top receivers, maybe top 10 in the NFL, around that range. Tunsil's certainly one of the top at his positions. But like, if you go through the entire of this roster and position by position, who are the guys, right, that are really tops of their position? Whereas like a Jeremiah Love or a David Bailey, even if he were to fall that far, which I don't think will happen, they could be these guys in a few seasons or a season that would be literally like top of their position rankings. You know what I mean? Like they would be that kind of player. I think we thought that about Jaden after year 1. I thought Jaden was like, okay, bare minimum, he's right in the outside of the top 10. If worst case scenario, then a year he doesn't play much, and you're like, well, we got to reset him because we can't put him in there if you want on the field. Yeah. And so you're hoping that he gets back to that range. But that is the one thing. Like, is this roster, because Dallas has a bunch of dudes like that, right? Dallas has guys that top position players. Even the Giants on defense has some guys that can be that way. Philadelphia certainly has them. But I would say the Commanders, if there's one area you look at them where they're behind the rest of the division alone, I'm not talking about the conference or the league, but even in their own division, like where are these like all pros, not pro bowlers, but all pro talent players? And I don't think there is as many here as there are the other places in the division.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. You don't see as many big names. There was a lot of respect coming into the season. I think Frankie Louvu was at the top, one of the best linebackers in the league on a few lists.
Tough year though.
Yeah, and then there was an off year, right? So you have to show up and do it again, and you have to do it again, and then you have to do it again. Yeah. The one thing that you named, though, a lot of those teams had a lot of superstars and a lot of big name players, especially down here in Dallas. But they didn't go to the playoffs either, right? You know what I mean?
Right. Giants, Cowboys didn't make the playoffs. Yeah,
they didn't go to the playoffs. DQ was saying the receiving group is probably going to be more of a group effort. Maybe you don't need as many superstars. And I know I've been banging the drum for a big name because you got to get some respect by lining somebody up on the field. But the beautiful thing about football, Scott, is that there's 11 people on the field on either side. And you can't, unless it's just a running back or a quarterback, you can't pretty much get the ball to one person every single time and hope that they're going to do it. It does take a group effort. It does take more than one person to go out there and fly around and make an impact on the game. I look over and I see Sonny Styles at the top of this screen right here. He's one of those guys that, with all of his freakish ability and athletic skill and all that's just naturally in his DNA. But we got to, is it going to translate to the NFL? You got to think it is. You assume that it is. He played at a high level. But we don't know. You don't know until somebody gets in that huddle, and then they're actually going out there and doing it. So that's kind of an unknown. That would be the one that's kind of like an experiment, if you will, just because he has all the freakish traits, but not a lot of the statistical production. But I still think he's going to be. I think he's going to be an impactful player. But I think there's some more people that have been more proven. Downs has been solid. And Delane has played pretty well. Love has been good as also, but I will say this. I want to go say this. I was thinking about it earlier. whenever Jaden Daniels came in that first year, I remember doing a random solo pod, and I was like, this is going to be super for the Commanders here in the next 3 to 5 years. And this is calling back to those trade scenarios. I don't really want to go think about next year's draft, right? I don't want to think about next year's draft or anything beyond that. I want to get people in this roster that can show up and do some things now. There are so many names there's some names that are going to fall out of this top 10 that should have been picked in the top 10, and Washington could finagle their way around, do some trades, dance, and be able to get that player that they wanted to get at 7 and get another impactful player in the second or late in the first and really change. Give me more of impactful players, because look at Cleveland. They have Myles Garrett on defense. Every team puts 2 and 3 people over there on him, and he still gets 25 sacks a season, and Cleveland has been at the bottom of the division for decades.
Well, the Raiders and Max Crosby, same example, right? Like, okay, great, he's a productive player, but on that team, it doesn't mean as much. And no, you're right. I mean, I think that's what's interesting. And again, this is why a lot of it comes back to coaching, right? Roster build isn't always like the best player at every position. You can't have every best of the best, the highest paid guy at every position, although Dallas is trying to do it. You can try it, but what does it get you at the end of the day? I mean, you got a cap to worry about. You got a lot of things, again, team building and what have you. And this is where the coaching comes in. This is where like a lot of the, I think the expectation and pressure, if you will, for this year's Commanders is on the 2 new guys, right? Like, and of course the head guy who hired them. Promoted from within an offense with David Blau. I mean, the Lions looked like they were ready to scoop him up. Nothing but good stuff heard about him around the league, right? For people that have worked with him and played with him. But he's still young and unknown. Same thing with Durante Jones. Been around a lot longer, obviously. Had the college experience too. But, same kind of thing. They went out on a limb for him. Dallas did the same thing, right? They took a secondary, a passing game coordinator, right, as their defensive coordinator from Philadelphia. Kind of the new trend, if you will, a little bit around the league, which is interesting. So, but those guys, there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to, that they're picking, they're getting a voice into what they need for their particular styles of offensive defense. And can they make it work without maybe having, a top, 10 receiver, or a top 5 running back or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? Like those kind of things on offense or on defense, not having, a guy who's going to get 15 sacks, can they create pressure anyway without it? Because you look at Minnesota, I mean, I don't think most people could pick their guys out of a lineup, or if they came in the room with their jerseys and their helmets, right? And they're like, I'm not even sure this guy is, but I do know their defense is badass. I do know that much, right?
Yeah, they will get after the quarterback. I think about Harrison Smith and how he's all over the field for that defense. And then Dallas, I want to say Dallas Turner, right?
Van Ginkel.
Van Ginkel was like a chess piece for that defense. Dude flying around wearing 43. Man, shout out to Darrell Lewis. I went to college with a guy named Darrell Lewis, man. He was an undersized defensive end, but he could sliver his way through the little gaps and creases, and kind of like Reuben Bain, man. He could just sliver through it and was very
Reuben Bain just knock you on your butt too with his hands, true. Man.
He's just a blunder, just a heavy-handed guy. My question is this. This is kind of going down this road. You're hinting at the fact of everybody's so young, right? New OC, new defensive coordinator, year 3 of the DQAP dance. How much patience do you think Josh Harris and the crew have in this experiment? How long do you think they're gonna go with this?
Well, you got to show some obvious like big improvement this year. You can't obviously have last year. Last year cannot happen again. They've all said it's unacceptable. It's not. You cannot have that type of year. You got to have your quarterback moving forward again this year, right? He's got to be on the field. First of all, you got to show that you've got a plan to protect him and keep him on the field, because that was a big reason why I don't think Kingsbury's part of this situation here anymore. You got to show that. I think playoffs, you got to at least be in it, right? You got to be at least, like playing meaningful games in December. But what if you don't make it? It's hard to say, would that fire them? I don't know. I mean, I think we all understand. I don't know. I don't say we all. I think most people understand year 1 was a beautiful surprise, right? Like that was a beautiful surprise, ahead of schedule moment in this franchise, right? Doesn't mean you can't get there again or you can't get better, but it was probably a roster, as we saw last year, that was not good enough to continue that way. And obviously, again, they had to replace a lot of people. And this year, I think they've done a better job at replacing said people, at least on paper, from what they did the previous offseason. But now we'll see it in practice. But like, is there a scenario where they don't make the playoffs and they all keep their jobs? Yeah, I think there is, right? If you're in games, you look like you're making progress. I mean, it's, sure. But would you rather than make the playoffs? Hell's to the yeah. Of course you'd rather than make the playoffs. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just an interesting thing. Cause I mean, I know people were like, man, DQ is taking a risk here. But maybe
not. Maybe they're playing the long play. Yeah. I mean, listen, again, he's big on collaboration, right?
Yeah.
I got to imagine, like, of course, at the end of the day, it has to be what he's comfortable with. It's his staff.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there was some input, from Adam Peters as well, and kind of explained it through him, like what they're thinking. And, probably too, I don't know if this is asked or not, but do you ask, hey, if I take a chance on a guy that we like that's young, are we going to give him a little grace, and David Blau and allow him to grow into the role? Or are we going to lop heads off after year one if we're not in the Super Bowl? I mean, you got to know these kind of things. You have to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah, that's what I feel
like to think they had those convos,
Yeah, they're going to at least say, at least he's been around a little bit and, we're willing to give him a little bit of time, but it's cuts from two ways. You don't want to sit here and say, I'm going to give you an extra year or two.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, well, this year we don't have to grow that much. Like, no.
Right.
We expect the results. We want to see, on-field
100%.
production and success. But that's also why I think getting more people in this draft, if you can get more people on the roster sooner with these young guys, especially when you talk about yard after catch, needing those type of players on offense. There's a lot of those in this draft. There's a lot of receivers that you just get the ball to them and let them go to work. It makes more sense to me to get the help now rather than trying to punt that down the road, Scott.
Yeah, I'm with you. We are Believing Commanders podcast brought to you by FanDuel. Please comment, like, and follow the podcast. And as Anthony was laying out before, not surprising, you cannot make any money on FanDuel betting Fernando Mendoza as the number one overall pick. But the second pick is interesting because I don't know if you paid attention to this lately, Anthony, but in the early on, it felt like everybody's like Arvell Reese. Now you're seeing this David Bailey conversation. So it does look like there is maybe some splits on where that's going to go with pick 2.
That's oil money coming in, man. That's that oil money coming in. David Bailey is the favorite right now. Minus
Look at that.
Arvell Reese is second at plus 155. And then Reuben Bain is plus 3,000. Jeremiah Love is the favorite at 4, right? He's the favorite at 4. And Mr. Bain is the favorite. Like Sonny Styles is the favorite at 5. Tate is the favorite at 6. So I guess that would, from the way this is kind of going, it would say the Commanders would be looking at, Spencer Fano, Caleb Downing would be sitting there. Caleb Downs, I'm changing his name, sorry. Caleb Downs, Spencer Fano. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out.
All right. That is Anthony Armstrong. I'm Scott Jackson. He was the original 13 in D.C. We will be back with you later this week. We're going to have a special guest on later in the week, John Keim. So look forward to doing that with John when he joins us. And all of you, again, as we get closer to draft time. It's very exciting times all around the NFL. But thanks for joining us here on Believing Commanders podcast. Give him a follow at Rated Armstrong at Jackson Sports on the X and at Real Jackson Sports on the Instagram. He is still Rated Armstrong on the Instagram, which makes it easy. Good for you. Until next time, we'll talk to you then. Thanks.